Hello, hello. Well, I'm gonna appear here. I'm just kind of having a time here walking, and I want to do a video that I think you might find interesting. I have been involved. I haven't been on YouTube for several weeks now. I've been involved in a court case in Idaho. I've got a lot of experience and a lot of education and experience of the judicial system in Idaho. The reason I'm doing this video is because I'm handicapped. I can't see, and I'm bipolar, and I'm protected as a person under ADA law, federal law. I am responding to the Idaho board. They've sent me a cease and desist letter. Because I can't see, I can't type a response, and I don't have machines that can go from voice to text. So I'm asking the board to accept this as my answer, and legally they have to. They don't think they do, but the law is very clear, and my experience with the attorneys of Idaho that I've dealt with, they seem to have a real difficulty with federal law. In Idaho, the attorneys that I have dealt with seem to be deficient in being able to defend the Americans with Disability Act. They don't know what a reasonable accommodation is. When I got the cease and desist letter from the board, the law board of Idaho, they sent it to me in some kind of encrypted email. I couldn't open it, I couldn't read it, and I have speaking email, and I have Siri email, and they've been able to open every email that I've ever had, and I've had hundreds, maybe thousands. So I don't know the shenanigans. I don't know why it wasn't able to be opened and read. I don't know why, evidently the format they sent, I don't know if it was encrypted, but I know Idaho. It's full of Mormons. I suspect, no proof yet, that the people who have accused me of practicing law without a license, many of them are Mormons. And their garments got twisted with some of their interpretations of me helping my son stay out of jail. Idaho charged my son, who's 52 years old, with 6 felony counts having to do with his children, female children, and their accusations of his inappropriate behavior with them sexually. He is autistic, has been since birth, and he's been bipolar since birth, and he certainly has diagnosed and medication and doctors and therapists to prove that. There's no doubt about that. What happened in his law case, he got convicted. He got convicted of 6 felony counts in Idaho. and got a prison sentence, I believe from 6 to 15 years. He's in an Idaho state prison right now. As a father, I've tried very hard over several months to help him navigate the legal system pro se. Pro se means he did it himself. He was representing himself. He had 2 attorneys, which he ended up suing because they didn't do a good job. He ended up making a complaint against their licensing, and he asked for their insurance companies for malpractice. So that has been a nightmare for the attorneys that he feels did not represent him properly, and it certainly is a difficult thing for both attorneys. However, it's not as difficult as sitting in a 6x8 jail cell for 5-6 years. It's been a long, hard road. There's been judges, there's been prosecutors that have, in my opinion, hidden agendas. Again, when you superimpose the Mormon umbrella of how Mormons are taught concerning authoritarian and cult-like practices, when you factor in the umbrella of the historical part of Mormonism, of not obeying the law, polygamy, lying that they basically stopped polygamy, and were caught by the feds finding out that they lied, and certainly the Mormons not allowing the black people race to join fully in their church. The blacks could not receive the priesthood, go to the temple, etc., only because the color of their skin until 1978, and I guess Jesus came down to the earth to, I believe it was Spencer Kimball, the prophet of the Mormon Church, and say, hey, Spence, you know, we're getting a lot of social pressure on this. Maybe you want to let the blacks have the priesthood. Well, they let the blacks have the priesthood because of the feds, not because of local law. You have to be very aware that Idaho and Utah, Utah not quite as much as Idaho, but Idaho is primitive. Idaho is really primitive, and I'm going to say many of the attorneys, judges, and persons in Idaho display the Mormon cult-like activity and cult-like behavior. They hide for hundreds of years, well, 170 or 80 years, child molestation. They sweep it under the carpet, and again, they don't follow mandatory reporting, and they've hidden and hidden and hidden. They have general authorities who have been accused, and leaders all the way down to the ordinary members of child molestation, and that goes on all the time. Now, the other thing the feds have a real hard time with is same-sex marriage. The Mormon Church spent millions of dollars, especially in California, and asked for their members to protect marriage, that they didn't want same-sex people marrying each other. Well, the Mormons got stopped on that. We have same-sex marriage in the United States, and all of the people said that it was a slippery slope and that the society was going to be torn apart. All the exaggerated things never happened. Never happened. The reason I'm bringing up the Mormon umbrella is the behaviors that I've seen from the Idaho judicial system reflect very heavily Mormon theology and Mormon philosophy. My son had been a Mormon most of his life, paid his tithing, did all the things he was supposed to do, and in the last, 4, 5, 6 years, he resigned. After he read the history and the essays, the 13 essays the Mormon Church put out, and the Mormon Church finally said, well, all the people that are criticizing us, that we called apostates, and to shun them, we're telling the truth. I was in the Mormon Church for 58 years. I was in the Elders Quorum. I served a short time in the Hartford, Connecticut state presidency as an executive secretary. I graduated from Brigham Young University. I had 4 years of seminary before I went to Brigham Young. I have been counselor in Elders Quorum, and I has worked in the temple as a veil worker in Los Angeles for over a year and a half. And I've been married 3 times. I don't think very many people can say this. In the temple. Manti Temple, Washington, D.C. Temple, Salt Lake Temple. I have a little bit of background with the Mormon Church and why the umbrella and the overview of the judicial system in Idaho is prejudicial, in my opinion, and that it's biased, in my opinion, and I think that it's reflective of the Mormon cult behaviors and philosophy. My son, who has what I have, bipolar disability, he has also autistic on the spectrum of autism. Now, when people see this video, they're going to say, and they may know, they may not know, my son's IQ is 134. One of the things you see with autism on the spectrum, I have one child, Aaron, who is now in his 30s, and he has an IQ of 52. So I have 2 autistic sons. One can hardly feed himself, go to the bathroom, take care of himself hygienically, eat, etc. Needs supervision all the time. The other one has an MBA. The one that got to prison in the Idaho court system has a master's of business accounting and a high IQ. At the same time, in special needs children, they may exceed, like a savant, in certain areas. And it's not just one area. A savant can have several areas of functioning, but have total absence of judgment, of understanding, language, interactions with people, etc. My son, name, Adam. When they took him to court, he simply asked for something very simple. And in my mind, and I hope your mind, common sense. Let me give you an example, an analogy. There's a video, excuse me, and you're sitting down watching this video and you're asked to make a judgment. The video has no sound, and all you see is a father changing his young daughter's diaper. And you notice that the father seems to be pretty concerned about her cleanliness, whatever. He seems to touch her vagina. He seems to open her vagina a little bit and cleans it, and her legs and her butt where the BM was all over the place. And it took a lot longer than people like me. I've had 7 girls, and you lay them down and basically wipe them quickly, put the diaper back on, and in 2 minutes, you've changed a young girl's diaper. This was much different, more touching, more feeling, and it looks suspicious, to say the least, this video, in my analogy. Took way too long, way too much touching, way too much extra cleaning. Now when you see this video, and I'm talking to people like you that will be on a jury, like me, peers, human beings with different experiences, educational level, knowledge, etc. If I saw that video, and I think if you saw that video, and it was presented as evidence that this father had sexual intent and behaved in a way that was criminal. That's against the law. That's child molestation. That is, sexual contact with a child under 6 years old. There's all kinds of statutes in different states. Be that as it may, if you and I looked at that video, and that was the main evidence against this man who was in court saying he was innocent, you and I would convict him. The reasonable man. That's the legal phrase that is used, and beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard level. I would say it's obvious. I see it with my own eyes. I think it's inappropriate, and I think the guy should go to prison for 6 years or more, like my son did. Now, here is the analogy and the reason I'm using that analogy. If the defense attorney stood up and said to the jury, the judge and the prosecutor, and was allowed to stand up and say this information, if the defense attorneys are not allowed to give you this additional information, that man, father, is going to jail. But in a court system of common sense, of justice, that's not overshadowed with the Mormon cloud, the dark cloud of bias and prejudice, if the attorney stood up and said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Miss prosecutor, and judge, please take this into account concerning what you've just seen with your own eyes. The father is changing his child, female, and he's blind. He's blind. Now, you and I are sitting on a jury, and now we say, I didn't know that. And now that I know that, I have, a reasonable doubt that it was sexual. He had to feel more to make sure she was clean. He couldn't see that like you and I can. He had to touch her more and locate her vagina. He had to do extra things because he couldn't see. He was handicapped. Now, in Idaho, you may believe it, you may not. I've lived it. I'm telling you what I've seen, what I've heard. In Idaho, they didn't allow that additional information. That man and father, like my son, will go to jail for 6 to 12, 15 years. And in fact, 6 felonies in Idaho could be a life sentence. He would go to jail for life as a blind man, handicapped, protected under federal law. But Idaho won't let that information come in front of a jury. They just show the video with no dialogue. And when the defense attorney, if they have any sense, which many and most don't, said, Your Honor, I need to add this information about the handicap. He's touching her so much because he can't see if she's clean. He can't see her anus. He can't see her vagina. Now, if I was on a jury, I would say, maybe he wasn't having sexual intent. Maybe he was accommodating his handicap. It would take a lot of courage for a father who is blind to even be photographed. The video itself is so prejudicial that me on a jury would say, no, if that's the only evidence you have, I'm going to say it's not beyond a reasonable doubt that he was sexually, intently molesting that small little daughter. That's exactly what happened to my son. That's exactly why he is in jail in Idaho. His bipolar and autism and anxiety disorder were not ever allowed in front of the jury. His twitching, his no eye contact, his sweating, his turning his head constantly, because he's mostly deaf in one ear. Not because he was nervous, not because he was trying to trick somebody, and the jury sat there for 3 to 5 days and watched that behavior. But his attorneys and the court judge and the prosecutor would not let the defense attorney say, what you're seeing is the results of his handicaps. You may think he's guilty because he turns red, because he turns his head oddly and cocks his head, and he has no eye contact, and his mannerisms, smiling, and not having social awareness, is not guilt. When we as a jury of 12 people see that, we go, well, God, he seems a little strange, and, maybe he's under a lot of stress because he's guilty, and he's displaying to us he isn't normal. There's something with this guy, and we are in court, and we are a jury, and we're looking at that. Now, many things I'm not going to go into. I will go into this. The jury, one person, I don't know, the whole jury, asked the judge, we can't see him. The table that he sat at has been there 100 years. The podium they spoke from had been there 100 years. To my knowledge, which is limited, the table has never been moved in the courtroom. Everybody who's been convicted or absolved, found innocent, have sat at that table. But somehow, this jury of 12 people said, we can't see him. Do you think that maybe they said that because they could see some really odd, strange social behaviors, but they wanted to be sure? So the judge says, yeah, I'll move the table. They picked the table up. I don't know how many days into the trial. I'm thinking probably the first day. And moved the table and my son right over in front of the jury. So now every odd behavior could be observed and be judged without explanation. I have 2 master's degrees in human services, and I have 1 BS degree from Brigham Young University in social work. I'm 76 years old. I have supervised residential treatment facilities for delinquent and or handicapped children my whole life. I have a little experience. I have 14 children. Yeah, I've been married 6 times, but the 6th marriage has been 18 years. A lot of that was probably my fault. I've tried to fix that. However, I have 1 child who is Aaron, autistic with an IQ of 52. I have fought for him for 18 years in the school districts for services under the Public Education Act. It's not the right term. Special ed. I fought several law firms. I won. I have another daughter who has paranoid personality disorder. I advocated for her in the school system. And since then, in relationships in her family, her children, her divorce, her being abandoned 2 or 3 times by people that appeared to want to be having a relationship with her, and then just disappearing in the middle of the night with their clothes out the door. She is special ed. Then I have Adam, the one that's in jail. Bipolar, autistic, nothing but problems from the first day of school. School after school. IEP after IEP. I won. Till he was 18. Now he's off on his own. He still doesn't have any judgment. He doesn't understand any social implications. And the accusations of tickling his girls and grabbing their pajama bottoms and pulling them off, going up a staircase to be funny, he thought, as a father. I wouldn't do that. But many of the behaviors he was accused of and convicted of had to do directly with his disabilities. Bipolar disorder, autism, anxiety disorders. I have another child. My genetics are not that good, I guess. Stephen. Stephen didn't graduate from high school. He was dropout. I had to go to the school for Stephen. The school didn't want to do anything. They just wanted to save money and let him go. I advocated for Stephen. I wasn't his attorney. I've never been an attorney. I've never acted to the public, holding myself out as attorney. I've never had business cards or stationery, and everything that I have clearly indicates I'm not an attorney. But anyway, Stephen was a drug addict. And I had to deal with that. I had to put him in Vermont, one of the best drug rehabilitation units, and they put him in a padded cell, and eventually he ran away, and they couldn't find him. Eventually, he was so disruptive in the family, I again advocated at the school at my advocation, built him his own program, construction, to teach him a trade that he could go out and support himself. Well, he quit that. I've had a little bit of experience with special ed children. I adopted one little girl who had been abandoned and had no father. And I lost almost $80,000 adopting her because the Mormon church said she couldn't go to the temple even though she was a family member unless she was legally adopted. She was getting a stipend every month because her father abandoned her. I lost that stipend. I thought it was more important to adopt her. At this point, I've had Stephen, Rachel, Adam, and Aaron all special ed kids. I have fought in Oklahoma, I have fought in Massachusetts, I have fought in California, and I have fought in Utah. I have another little girl that I adopted from the Philippines, Allison, and Allison began to have problems immediately when I immigrated her to the United States. Again, IEP, having to argue with psychologists, principals, superintendents of school districts for special needs classes and special needs support to get through school. She was on medication. Adam has been on medication. Rachel has been on medication. And Allison made it to the 10th grade. She quit. I had legal problems. I had to go to court and defend as a parent because I was irresponsible because she was underage, that she had gotten into a scam and took $3,000 out of my account without permission and had to go on a work detail and had restitution, etc. So I've had some experiences with dealing with many institutions. I have a beautiful daughter who is a sergeant in the United States Army in South Korea. She's in charge of other people. She has been up in rank over and over again, and she is in a top secret program in South Korea. She can't even tell me what her job is. But I know when they launched those missiles in North Korea, 30 or 40 miles from where she's stationed, she's sitting at a computer council and tracing those missiles. In 7th grade, right out here where I'm looking, she took me out on the patio, sat down, and I said, "What's going on, honey?" She says, "There's something, Dad, I gotta tell you." And I said, "All right." I've seen a lot of things. What you say to me is not going to surprise me. She said, "Well, Dad, I'm a lesbian. I'm in 7th grade, and I've figured out, I'm attracted to other girls, and I am a lesbian." I said, "Well, honey, what you do with your vagina is your own business. That doesn't have any effect upon me." Well, she was discriminated against. She has been harassed. She has been treated poorly in Utah because of the Mormon umbrella hating gay people and treating them and not letting them get married or go to the temple or to be with each other. I had to defend Abigail once in the school district because there was a white, young Mormon woman teaching in the gymnasium, and somebody did something to Abigail, and Abigail said in a loud voice, and everybody heard it, "Fuck you." Well, that's not appropriate, and I don't, defend a child or an adult in a public place exposing other people to that kind of behavior and language. I thought, well, what's reasonable? Well, you and I know what's reasonable. Maybe you'd give her detention for 3 or 4 days. Maybe you'd send a note home to the parent and say your child is such and such. You may ask them to even, do some work around the school, mop the floor. There has to be reasonable expectations that as a society we're not going to accept that overt negative behavior. This little Mormon teacher goes, no, that is so horrendous. It's like murder. It's like murder to this Mormon woman. She wanted, I'm exaggerating here, the child to be executed for bad language when she was pushed or shoved out. I didn't think that was right. I had to go to a big meeting with the principal and the little Mormon teacher, and they were saying, we are going to put a permanent, not 2 months, not 3 months, no expungement, no recourse, poor citizenship grade for the rest of her life. She was in 7th grade, so at 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, for 5 years at that school, there would be a permanent record that she had poor citizenship, not being able to fit in, not being able to function properly. Even though she got good grades, even though she never had any other problems, even though. Well, again, the Mormon umbrella. The little white teacher who just went berserk with the fuck you was obviously LDS. Obviously saying this brown girl from the Philippines that I adopted is trash. Our Book of Mormon says she has dark skin. She's loathsome. The Book of Mormon used to say, now they changed it, the book that's perfect, that never should have been changed, that people were white and delightsome. They got in a lot of trouble for that phrase, but they still believe that, even though it's been changed in their Doctrine and Covenants to wholesome. Now, I have had some experience that has varied from drug addiction to autism, etc. I've certainly supervised hundreds of children who have other diagnoses and behaviors. I'm never going to accept handicapped people taking advantage of society. I don't think handicapped people can say morally, physically, emotionally, I want to be at the front of the line because I'm handicapped. That's crap, in my opinion. And I'm a handicapped person. I don't think that the line should say, well, you have to be behind us because you're not as good. You're always going to be the last person in line. I don't think that's right either. I think what's right is that person should get in line like any other normal person and stand and wait and be courteous at the front for service and respond the best they can, but it has to be respectful and socially acceptable. Now there's some people that have Tourette's that might be seen as unsociable. Some people have epilepsy, falling down and swallowing their tongue and twitching and turning at the service desk. These things have to be accepted as mental and physical disabilities. As a society, that's our obligation. And as a society, we've had to pass the 1990s Americans with Disability Act to protect those kinds of people. I would never, ever defend, and I've made this very clear on my videos and very clear on this video, I would never defend people who are breaking the laws that have been passed. That, to me, needs punishment, and it is not acceptable, even if you're handicapped. But here's the difference. If you're handicapped, like the father changing the diaper, that has to be counted in and mixed in, analyzed, and correlated with the law that is being discussed. That's what I fight for. That's what I have fought for my whole life. That I'm not going to stop fighting for. The cease and desist letter, which motivated this response, I'm not going to comply with. I've never written, composed anything to a court system. I have never said to anybody, I'm an attorney. I have disallowed that on my licensing in Bountiful, Utah, where I have a city license and a state license in the state of Utah. The purpose of my business is to advocate and to help individual people defend themselves. I don't defend anybody but me. I have a legal right to be my own attorney, pro se, and every other human being has that same right, but they don't have my background and my education to navigate around the Mormon umbrella, the prejudice, the ideas of society that discriminate against handicapped people. Now, is my son innocent? No. I think he did tickle the kids too much. I think he may have said some things in judgment that he should have never said. I think that basically, again, if I was on a jury and saw that father changing a diaper, I would go, well, yeah, that's molestation. And then they say, he's blind, the father? I say, well, should there be another trial that introduces this child, 52 years old, child, has autism, and he's bipolar and has anxieties disorders. What you're seeing, the twitching, the red skin, the sweating, etc., are indicative of those particular disabilities. Judgment in bipolar, definitely. Most bipolar people don't have a lot of judgment, and many do end up in jail because they don't conform to all the rules of society. Autism. There's a wild card that can go from 136 IQ to 52 IQ and have savants all in the middle with MBA degrees, with other kinds of islands of success. I believe that a new trial is in order. I believe that his disabilities should be revealed, and all the symptoms and the behaviors of those disabilities revealed. Then let a jury look at the evidence, look at the witnesses, look at his adult children that have accused him of inappropriate sexual behavior, and weigh, and then go, well, this is our decision. It may be, no, he had no sexual intent. It may be an acquittal. It may be, well, 6 felonies, we're going to not go with 4 of them, we're going to convict him of 2. There could be many outcomes of a new trial if the disabilities had been revealed and the jury was educated on what they were looking at and what they were hearing. So, A long story long. I'm going to put this on YouTube. I can't read the name of the attorney who wrote me the letter, and I can't read the witnesses. My computer doesn't do that. I am going to list them, though. They're not going to get off of kicking over this hornet's nest. I'll do that on a later video, and this video probably will go to 2, maybe 3 videos, and eventually I will reveal the individuals who are doing this. When I've asked for their law license, they've refused. That's unethical in Idaho and in Utah. When I've asked them to call me because my company is named Cockroach Disability Law Center, I like to be called Mr. Cock. I instructed them that. They wouldn't do that either. I did ask for a reasonable accommodation to send me their complaints and letter in a format that I could read. They complied. They did send it a second time. I was able to read it, and now I'm responding to it in my own way because I can't type it. All I can do is publish it, and this YouTube will be sent to them with the other sections of the YouTube. There's long precedent that I can respond as a handicapped person differently than having to type it all out, etc. If they want to take a speech to text on the YouTube, they can do that. But be that as it may, let me close this particular video with these comments. I am not going to cease and desist defending, advocating, and teaching and helping individuals stand up for themselves, represent themselves, and get a fair shake in the judicial system. Idaho is one of the most primitive systems I've ever seen, the most discriminatory, and the people there endorsing the law and interpreting the law have the Mormon umbrella of cultism, hate, and prejudice. That doesn't belong in a judicial system. So, remember my analogy. If you see a video with no sound of a father changing his daughter's diaper, and it was inappropriate at sight, but when you got the information, he was blind, now it makes sense. Now, is he guilty of sexual misconduct? You and I would sit on a jury, discuss it, and go, well, and we don't know what 12 other people would think. If I was on the jury, I would say, well, that additional information makes me suspicious that he had no sexual intent. He was just changing his daughter's diaper. That would be my conclusion. Does he deserve punishment? I don't know. As a jury, I would have to have all the other facts, all the other circumstances, etc. So, this is my response to the Idaho Board of Law and the individual who sent me the cease and desist, and the couple of people that were investigators and or complainants. Molly was there, I don't remember, but I will get it all up on video because it should be public. They made it public. I was sitting here just looking out the window and watching my pine tree and the fountains and the ponds. Suddenly my AI lit up and they attacked me and my business, and I am protected under ADA law, and I have every right to advocate, inform, and be an informative source for people. I have every right to be on YouTube giving ideas to people to defend themselves. I certainly have looked at and am evaluating if I want to continue legal remedies of getting this kind of information. Now, to end this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my response. Yes, it's AI generated. Yes, it's me talking to AI and working with AI, but that is like Westlaw. That's like other legal advice and remedies and information for everybody to have. So be patient. Let me put this Bard from Google has developed this, and let me see. Yeah, I'm old, yeah. I move funny, yeah. I'm fat, and yeah, I'm probably obnoxious, but I do win. I do win. I can hardly stand here.
Can a recipient of a defamatory cease and desist letter sue in Utah and Idaho? While a cease and desist letter is not a legal document and carries no court order, sending one containing inflammatory, threatening, or untrue allegations can create legal trouble for the sender in Utah and Idaho. Depending on the specific content and context, the recipient may have various legal remedies, including suing for slander or seeking damages in a civil lawsuit. Potential legal issues. Slander. Both Utah and Idaho recognize slander, which occurs when someone makes a false and defamatory statement about another person to a third party, damaging their reputation. The statement must be untrue, published, communicated to someone other than the person it's about, and cause harm to the recipient's reputation. A cease and desist letter containing false and harmful allegations about the recipient could potentially constitute slander if it's shared with others. Defamation per se. Certain statements are considered defamatory per se, meaning they are automatically considered harmful without requiring proof of actual damages. Some examples include accusing someone of a crime, having a contagious disease, or engaging in sexual